Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness in the highest levels of love light. I just wanted to go into a little flow. So sometimes I just open up and let my guidance team, my higher self, kind of just share information that's coming in through the ethers and anchor and ground that energy and embody it and then share it with you guys. So this is meant to sometimes just be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear basis, although we'll just kind of see what comes through. So let's just go into it. And let us step into a new frame of reference, for as we allow ourselves to reference different networks, as we allow ourselves to come back into a higher frame of reference, as we allow ourselves to create this experience through a higher reference point, we are able to point to a different direction. We are able to hold a pointed exchange of information. We are able to point out and point in to access more of the encodement that is held within our own framework. Let us go into this a bit deeper. As we allow ourselves to access this higher reference board, this higher frequency, this higher dominion, it allows us to create our own accessibility to this higher framework, dominion, dimension. I'm hearing velocity, speed, knowledge, vibration, all of the above. For as we create, we allow ourselves to get rid of pointing at one another, pointing at that which is outside of one, pointing at, and I'm seeing pointing the finger, basically. And we bring ourselves back into phi, the unified, the unify, the unifinger. So I'm seeing phi like 5 hands, like the ratio, the golden means, also 5D, 5th dimension. And I'm seeing integers. I'm seeing, again, fingers. We recognize that the fingers are not separate of the hand. We recognize that our hand is connected to the higher hand, and we are recognizing then that we are being dealt a higher hand than we have ever been dealt in the past. For as we allow ourselves to change our frequency, we change the reality in which we are slipping into. And those which are slipping back, it feels as if they are moving back into a field that they no longer wish to experience, will begin to recognize that they can pull that cord. So I'm seeing a reference to cut the cord, but also pull the cord and come in for a slower landing. Some people are trying to just let go and move into these higher frequencies without necessarily integrating some of the energies. They haven't processed their experience. They're looking to jump timelines too quickly. And what I'm being shown is that part of what's happening is we're integrating a lot of these energies so that we can fold into the recipe that which we've learned and take with us the valuable experiences that help us create unity and oneness in this new framework. When I say framework, framework is a reference to the frame that we see things in, the picture that we hold our view, that we're pointing at, saying, this is where I want to go. And when I see point, I'm referring to points on a map. So we're pointing to a direction, but many people are looking here, they're looking there, and they're not actually, I'm seeing the 5-finger point, like when you point at somebody, there's 4 fingers pointed back at us. So we're really being called to make these adjustments and recognize that not everybody's on the same page right now, but we're being called to, I'm seeing a tearing out an old page from the notebook, crumpling it up and just kind of saying, all right, I'm going to start fresh, but you still have the notebook that has all the other pages in it. So we can utilize our experiences and kind of help each other move through these difficult times. For some, times are more difficult than others. We feel challenged by what is being lit up on the board, the marquee. And we are seeing that many of the keys that we have been utilizing in our previous history, in our previous abilities to hone in on what's happening in our reality, those keys no longer fit because those doors are no longer I'm just seeing like a lot of those old doors are closed, but we're still trying to fit a key in a hole where the lock has been changed. And the lock has been changed so that we don't go back into these old corridors, is what I'm hearing, that are essentially in the process of being, I'm hearing melted down. So when you take a block of something and you melt it down, and then it's able to be, and I'm seeing like the core of the earth, like there's just lots of shifts that we don't need to go back there right now. For many of us are not recognizing that we have rebirthed an entire new reality. And so we are still currently turning into current situations and current timeline fluctuations. Many people are picking up on the fear fluctuations, for they are still processing and integrating their own fearful experiences, memories, or connection points. And this is all part of the human process. Yet we are coming together by coming and unifying with the whole of humanity, recognizing that there is no separation. One human is connected to another. All right, I'm being called to show the circle of connectedness, or we could say the well, we could call it the circle of influence, and we could call it the sphere of influence. And I'm being just, I drew this earlier, and I'll go back into flow in just a moment, but I drew all these little people. And let's say, and the reason I'm being called to say this is because I'm being shown that we're just not realizing the ripple effect that we're having on this entire reality. And our circle of influence, we don't think goes very far. Oftentimes I work with someone and they don't think they're doing enough, or they feel like somebody else isn't doing enough. And I'll get back to that in a minute, because this is exactly what I was just saying, or my guidance team, my higher self, is saying that it's time to stop pointing the finger at the people outside of us all the way over here, because ultimately it starts with here. So let's say we're this little person right here, and we have a beautiful conversation with this person right here. Now they're in this sphere, and you can see this connection point. Then there's another person over here that we end up going to talk to, and we create, obviously, that connection point. And we have an impact on them. They may be, let's say, 2 hours in our future, but once we move into that space or that now moment, they become part of the same sphere, right? So they have a ripple effect on us, and we have a ripple effect on them. And then later, let's say this person goes and talks to this person. We've affected this person through our energy, frequency, and vibration. And now these two people are impacted by this person. So we'll call this person number one. And then this person goes and talks to this person in a couple of days or a couple of hours. And these two become connected through this circle. And this is ultimately because of this person back at number one. This is where it all began. And this is how it works. And essentially, this is all one circle, or subset, 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 bubbles within bubbles within bubbles. This has a ripple effect and an impact more than we have the comprehension sometimes of recognizing. And it could just be from us giving that person a hug. That person, we gave them a hug, they were having a bad day. They were able to get out of their impact zone where they were feeling fully impacted by the grief or sadness that they were feeling. And then they were able to have an impact on somebody else that came into their zone because their frequency shifted, and they recognized, because they weren't just totally immersed in their own problems, they recognized that this other person way down here, or that they met the next day, was maybe experiencing something similar. And they might say, you know, I had this amazing experience the other day that impacted my life, and I want to share that with you. Or maybe they're meeting someone for the first time and they recognize that that person is really high strung and full of anxiety. And it might just take a nice handshake, or it might take us showing up and offering someone, I was going to say a cup of coffee, but maybe you don't want to give someone who's high strung a cup of coffee, but just saying, here you go. I brought you this cookie today. I hope, you know, I know you like chocolate chip. I know you like chocolate. I thought this might make you happier, whatever it might be. Our sphere of influence, our impact zone, and the impact that we have on one another is vast. And we're really being called to see our own circle growing, because we are radiating out energy, and that radius expands the more we expand our radii as each unique individuals in the circle of the whole pie. And so our influential sphere grows out. And so that which held influence over us or influenced us through sphere now tends to fall away. It tends to have less of an impact on our impact zone when we zone in and hone in on and hold on to the higher frequencies of compassion, of I'm hearing ingenuity. That's a play on words. I'm hearing genuine, genuine human experience. Engine, what floats our boat, what gets our motor going, what stirs our juices, what helps us feel more joyful and blissful. And then we share that with our compadres, is what I'm hearing. Compadres, companions. For we are all connected in this way. Our realm of reality, that which we revel in, reveal in, realize, that which we are living within, holds a certain I'm hearing a diaphragm. So that's a play on words. Diagram, so a breath. So as I say breath, I'm hearing breadth, like a space, right? A size. So the more we can focus on that inner spark, the bigger our size becomes. For we are being called to radiate out this frequency into a higher field. And I'm being called to say that when we're so for example, if I'm doing energy work with someone, I will start off sometimes getting very close to the person. If it's in person, if it's physical, I might stand, right next to them and hover my hand right over the heart or something of the sort. But then oftentimes by the time the energy session is done, I'll be called to step way back with certain people, because I then feel how far out their field has expanded. And so it starts out as being sometimes dense and coagulated. And then as we work together, I'm not doing the work. I am just a conduit, allowing for what I'm hearing is the field to recognize our presence. So we begin to recognize each other's signature frequencies, and we begin to then ping off of each other. And the body, or the field in which the body exists, or the existential plasma field that we are all poured out of or poured into or created from, begins to shift accordingly. Pausing just for a minute. Pause. Excuse me, just for a minute. Okay, so slight interruption. Not sure where I left off. So let's just get back into flow and kind of see where we're going with this. And so many of us are being called to go back within and to stabilize our own frequency before we dive into a pointed place on the map. For many of us are pointing to a place on the map that no longer suits our trajectory. For we have changed. And as we change, the ideas and situations that we may have thought we needed in order to grow from, or to grow into, or to move into, also shift their direction, and they move into a different variation or template, one might call them, based on a new trajectory. And for some, this can be scary because the old disintegrates, and as the old disintegrates, it becomes less stable as we begin to feel more fluid. For we are in a higher dimensional awareness, and the density and the patterns that many of us had been locked into often gave us a false sense of security. This false sense of security of what we thought we knew, or what we felt comfortable knowing, or that which we felt confident in knowing about. So that's kind of all a play on words. Now gives us a sense of what now, what next, what is happening, for nothing is the same as it once was. And so those that are easily, I'm seeing many different things. So we could look at one end of the spectrum with people that are easily moved, meaning they're more fluid and they're just like, well, this is life. Let's see what it's leading next. They will have an easier time than those that have been very ingrained in a particular path or pathology. And I'm seeing that means way of thinking, way of being, way of interacting with others. All of a sudden, nothing fits. Also, an idea about how our reality works. So there's going to be some who really are lost. And for those of us who feel a bit more settled in our own skin, in our own ability to go within, in our own observable qualities, in our own observation, we are then able to objectively look at each situation with a renewed sense of stability. When we feel this way, when we access this sense within ourselves, it gives us the ability to assist in stabilizing the frequency of reality. Therefore, so I'm being called, so when you go back to this, and let's say we have this ripple effect, and let's call that yellow circle reality, the more we stabilize, the thicker it gets, and the more we're able to stabilize the frequency, and it becomes less scattered. There is a fine line between stability and rigidity. For in rigidity, we find ourselves cracking. We find this false sense of security as stability, when in reality, it was, I'm hearing a ridge line, like it's when an earthquake, right? Ridge, you guys know what I'm trying to say, I think. And this creates this shaking. I'm hearing shaking in our boots. Like this creates more fear and the ability to hang on to something that seems stable, but in reality, it is perhaps built on, I'm seeing a fault line. That's what it is. Fault line. There was that earthquake in California and I was thinking of ridge. Anyways, so oftentimes I'm seeing the tectonic plates shifting and recognizing that everything shifts and everything is shifting, and much of what was created is no longer able to hold. So I'm seeing an example of buildings that maybe were not up to code, and this is all a play on words. So there were old buildings, right, that maybe were built, let's say in the 50s, and we've seen this, unfortunately, if what's going on the earth with literal earthquakes. We've seen these people who are really affected because of these old buildings that couldn't hold up to the new, and this isn't what I'm referring to in this particular transmission, but it is a comparison. So if you compare that, and we're not able to then move with the times and move with the change, everything crumbles and everything falls apart. Now, I am being called to address that briefly, because part of what is happening is that there are hundreds of thousands of people overall over the course of the world in the United States, beyond the United States, beyond this bubble, who are being affected by earth changes, war, violence, my security system, my second security system. Sorry, you guys, I've got a lot going on. I've got noise out there. My dog's going crazy. And I'm just going to have to roll with it. But essentially what's happening is we have this, my alarm clock. Do you guys have a dog that wakes you up at like 5 or 6 a.m.? That's your alarm clock. He's my little alarm. He rings the bell. People are here. Anyways, so this kind of, I'm hearing security. So there is this sense that our security, which is our root system, our root chakra system, has been shocked. This is all a play on words, but what I'm seeing is we've had our sense of security uprooted. Now, what's going on though? So I'm being called to play with this a bit. There are so many people whose sense of security and stability is being affected. When theirs is affected, everyone who has any connection or, and we're all connected to that human, is going to feel the ripple effect, just like this. So this could go both ways, right? It doesn't always have to be sunshine and rainbows. But what's happening is we as a human collective, even though it may not seem this way, are feeling compassion. We're seeing these other people suffering and we feel compassion for them because we could be them, because we are them. What if that were us? What would we do? And what it's doing is it's causing us to actually look at our value system. It's causing us to reevaluate what we're looking at, how we're looking at, and what we want to do for each other, and how we want to move into the future and support one another. And this has to do with how we treat the earth. This has to do with, but what I'm really being called to express is, I'm hearing, don't jump the gun. There's a lot of people who are jumping onto something saying, well, this is the answer. This is going to bring us another version of security. But in reality, a lot of the things that people are clinging to for support is not real, in the sense that it's not really being supported by the new energy, if that makes sense. So a lot of the things that maybe gave us security in the past aren't going to in the future, even if we want them to, because our future isn't dependent upon what our past used to be dependent on, if that makes sense. And so what can we do? So I've got two subject matters going, because there's so many people who are just feeling such sadness for our fellow humans. Well, what can we do? Well, the only thing we can only do what we can do. So that means, what can we do? Well, we can either choose to react and be sad and point fingers and blame and be angry and lower the frequency of ourselves and everyone around us that comes into contact with us. Or we can do what we can do, which is maybe go help our neighbor, maybe make our neighbor dinner who hasn't been eating because they haven't been feeling good. It might be that we pray and we start a prayer group every night. It might be that we work with some grid workers on channeling or connecting our electrical energy through intention and pointing our awareness into the heart of Mother Earth and sending energy out in healing waves into Earth with a group of like-hearted fellow humans. And in doing that, not only do we share our energy with the Earth's magnetics and electricity and cellular structure and vibration and sound, we then, when we do that in a group, we enhance each other. We enhance our experience. We make a deeper connection with our brothers and sisters. And that then, let's say we could do in a group of 12 people, those 12 people are going to affect at least 12 other people. More likely, they're going to affect hundreds of other people if you look at that ripple map, right? So that's what we can do. We can choose how and what we focus on moving forward. We may not be able to fly to Turkey, for example, or work on a science team to figure out what kind of technology we can use to assist. But we can say, you know what, I'm really interested in humanitarian work. But what I'm being called to remind everybody is to take it back to what I was saying earlier, which is not jump into, well, this is the answer. Really hone in on what the answer really is, not the answers that are being provided by systems that no longer have security. I had many of us know what that is. So many of us have been taught to listen to particular people or groups of authority who have the knowledge and the knowing that we then trusted in order to create from that our foundation, from that foundational base of truth. But many of us are recognizing that there may not have been 100% truth to what we were told. In addition to that, some of the things that were true are no longer true because they don't fit into the framework that we are existing within now. That's a little esoteric or quantum, but that's essentially what I'm being shown. So the more we stabilize our frequency in the higher fluidity of heartfelt compassion and compatibility, the more we become compatible, the more we become compatible and less compatible. And as I play with that, I'm seeing we become more compatible with our reality and less combative with a reality that we no longer wish to see. So we're not fighting against something. Instead, we're saying, all right, how can we incorporate? What can we do to just make this shift now? And also I'm being guided to play with the word bat. So much is coming in. Essentially, this has to do with our brain. It has to do with our sonar system. We begin to see with eyes to see. But when we talk about with eyes to see, with ears to hear, that like Jesus talks about in the Bible, it isn't just our physical eyes. We sense things. So somebody might tell us, hey, this is really good for the environment. This is where we need to go. But that person based their information on perhaps money. And it may not have been a negative thing. It might have been that the money was going to impact things in a good way, but that environmental, let's say, benefit wasn't really the answer. And I'm just using that as an example, and I'm not going to just go in, I'm not going to say this is what I'm referring to. Fill in the blanks, whatever you know, to, just recognize that just because it offers I'm seeing smoke and mirrors, like it offers a potential solution, it doesn't really mean that's the solution. So we're really being called, what I'm hearing is to dig deeper. And not just, it kind of goes back to not expecting something to save us. We really need to do, and what I was writing about was grassroots. We need to go back to our grassroots band. And we're creating that. Essentially, we're banding together. We're being called to reconnect with our roots, back to the root chakra, back to our sense of security, and also connect back in with the earth, grass. And this creates essentially a banding together, a symphonic adjustment that allows us to adjust to some of the changes that are happening on the earth, whether these changes are man-made or these changes are made because of the expansion that's happening not only on the earth, but in our galaxy, universe. It's all connected. And then what happens when we start to react, what I'm hearing is an alchemical reaction. We don't react in the same way that we may have reacted before. And this helps us to hold the frequency in harmony. Again, we're moving out of harm and moving into the many, the harmony of one another. And we begin to support one another through perhaps ways that we didn't think were humanly possible. And it's a lot. So this compassion that we feel and the sadness that we feel is actually, from one perspective, helping us expand our vibration to help support one another. It is going to stir up anger. And what I'm being shown is, in some people, it stirs up fear and anger and all of this. And a lot of it comes from a sense of lack of control. When we don't feel like we're in control, again, back to stability versus rigidity, we're being called to recognize, what can we control? Well, if we start with ourselves, if every single person started there, the choices and the opportunities and the ideas and the support that would then make it self-aware to us, we would make ourselves aware of, that we would start to recognize, would shift the world just like that. But we have many people who are still stuck in this idea of I'm just seeing tunnel vision. All right, so I'm going to kind of end on this note. And we have an entire support network at our disposal. We have many beings who are here as the human collective that does support one another in a variety of ways. We have scientists, we have doctors, we have teachers, we have mothers and fathers, we have elders who communicate their life experiences that is then passed down to the generations. We have younger generations that express back to us the gift of childlike wonder and enthusiasm. And those are the basic building blocks of a human collective. The other things, and I'm being called to really focus on the word things that are non-organic, are merely I'm seeing there the stuff that isn't really us. The technology, the social platforms, the non-human experiences. We're really being called to start to see that those things are tearing apart. Some of it's helping bring us together, like you're watching this video possibly through social media, and you're using a device to watch the video, and that can be very helpful at times for certain people to tune into others who might be making an effort to raise frequency and vibration, and maybe it's beautiful music, whatever it might be. However, we cannot rely solely on that. It comes back to our soul, our soul's journey, which is not electronic, it's electricity. It isn't a device of mechanics. I'm hearing mechanical ability. It has mechanical ability, but it isn't, again, inorganic. And that was all kind of a rhyme. It literally is the seeding of the sound of the hue, the hum, the human interaction that is creating the electrical stimulation and patterning that is creating the grid that we are all working within to create the new reality, the new earth, whatever it might be. So it is that communion, the communionship, that's all a play on words, with each other. And getting away from needing constant stimulation or stimuli from an outside source that gives us instant validation or verification that we think gives us accessibility. I'm hearing like you get the verification code and you're in. We really are being called to get outside and support if we really want to have an impact, not just to sit in front of our computer, sit in front of our television and watch as, and I'm being called to talk about as an observer. We're then witnessing things, we're observing, but we're not observing with eyes to see necessarily. We're not going within and communicating with those people who might be in it or going through it. So ultimately, I'm going to end on this note. It really is about us having the human experience. And if you've got something that's a buffer between us and another person that is constantly there, yes, we learn how to interact with each other in the best way that we can in that human experience. But I'm hearing buffer-free zone. So part of this is just rolling up our sleeves and getting dirty, going out and working the land, going out and having community get-togethers, going out and giving someone else a hug, and not, what I'm hearing is hiding behind the false sense of security that doesn't allow us to reach the highest compatibility with our own, I'm hearing inner nobility. So when I go into inner nobility, I'm hearing noble gases, creationary realms and abilities. And I'm hearing nobility is that crown chakra, right? The system of getting out of just security, which is the root system. You've got to take it all the way to the crown. You've got to take it from the bottom up. And sometimes that false sense of security is feeling like we're already at the top because of an impact that maybe it's just on social media, or the idea that we've got something coming, so we're all waiting for it and we're floating up here. But then when that doesn't happen the way that we think it should, poof, everything kind of cracks and we start to lose that sense of security because we were rigidly just focusing on that one story or that one idea, hoping that that would come in and support us. But we are responsible for supporting ourselves first. And I say that in the sense of not a negative thing like being selfish. It's doing what we need to do at the root, eating the right foods, connecting with the earth, being in our body, you know, providing the things that we need there. And that helps us to socialize. That helps us to be able to communicate, not only with our bodies, but with our environment, and therefore with one another, and not be disconnected or in the buffer zone where we, and this is something else that's coming through, is that creates that buffer zone. What it does is that I'm being shown basically like a membrane. I'm being shown that that buffer zone, it desensitizes us. We aren't aware of what it feels like to socially interact at the highest levels because we've been behind a screen, and the screen I'm seeing is just a layer of static. And all of a sudden we start to, what I'm hearing is lose our grip on reality, lose our sense of self, lose our direction. And then we get scattered and we don't know where to go next, what's happening, how we should feel, who to talk to. And then we turn back to, well, this person's giving me the sense of stability, so that they must be right. And that might be true in some cases. But ultimately, it's not about them giving that to us. It's about us giving it to ourselves. And therefore, it's feedback with each other. Okay, so I'm going to end on that note. I'm so grateful for you guys. And I know I don't always respond to comments and things like that, but I do appreciate anybody who's sharing in these videos and all of us sharing in this experience together. And I'm just really grateful for this journey that we are all experiencing together in our own unique and individual way. And collectively, we're maintaining a very high level of frequency that many of us aren't even realizing we are, because, oh, I'm being called to say one more thing. We're expecting fireworks, but we're not able to feel those fireworks if there's a buffer zone and we're looking through, watching them, let's say on television, rather than feeling them in our own body. Feeling the frequency and the vibration and the shift makes the experience much more, well, obviously experiential, and much more fluid, and much more, it increases our senses of awareness and everything else. So anyways, in love and light, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Invite everybody to get the feet on the ground, connect with water, say our prayers or affirmations, connect with each other, give people a hug, make some dinner for your neighbor or friend, bake some cookies for, someone who might be lonely, whatever it might be, just doing those little things, because it does have such a ripple effect that we don't even realize. In love and light, namaste.